Hello again, everyone. Welcome back. Today we're talking about one of my favorite things, which is not only journaling, but journaling in composition notebooks. If you've been following my channel for any time, you know that I am completely obsessed with composition notebooks. This year, in 2021, had chosen not to use the composition notebook for my everyday journal. I am journaling a little bit different this year, and that's just because I needed a change. 2020, though it held so many amazing, wonderful memories, I just needed a change. And so, unfortunately, this year I'm not using the composition notebook in regards to my everyday journal. I am sure that I will be using multiple composition notebooks because I have one that I'm using for my writing. I'm still in my Wild Sexy Life Chick composition notebook, which I don't have with me. I just put it away this morning. But there are a few things you need to know, in my humble opinion, before you dive in to using a composition notebook. The first thing that I would like to say is that not all composition notebooks are equal. And I'm gonna kind of share a little bit about that. So the ones I have here are your typical, like what you'd get at Walmart or Target. This is actually a UV brand, which I believe is Target's brand, that Cynthia Lee painted a portal on the cover for me. This one, I believe, is your typical, it just says composition book on the back, and it's made in Vietnam, which I'm gonna get her name wrong, but there's another YouTuber here on YouTube. I believe her name is Melanie, and she is also a lover of composition notebooks, and she has the most beautiful journals. I will put a link to her channel down below. She is a big fan of making sure when you buy a composition notebook that it is made in Vietnam. She talks about the paper quality and how it's so much different than anything made anywhere else. And so that's one thing she double checks before she uses or picks out her composition notebooks. Okay, so you have these typical ones that everyone's used to seeing. Then you have the Michael Rogers decomposition notebooks. And you guys know that I have been obsessed with the decomposition notebooks, mainly because I just love all the different covers. This one, and he names them. So this one is the Monarch Migration. He puts the name on the back. It is 100% post-consumer waste recycled pages, printed with soy ink and made in the United States. I love that about these comp books. But they do have their downside, and I'm gonna get there. So just to show you a few, this was the fromage collage with all the cheeses. These are from 2018. This one is Redwood Creek, and I did a little coloring on this one. One of the reasons I really loved the Michael Rogers decomposition notebooks was because I could color them. And so a lot of times if I knew I was going to be flying during the life of one of these, which my journals always take me through a season. So this is winter, and I would choose it based on what I had going on. And so I'm an anxious flyer, and having a decomposition notebook where I could color really helped me. And so I would typically choose it based on that. This one, I was gonna be at Art Lockdown, and so I chose it because while I'm at Art Lockdown, we basically live off of charcuterie boards. And Art Lockdown 21 is coming in January, and I can't wait. I'm so excited. Anyways, I rabbit trail. Okay, so I love the decomposition notebooks for many reasons, but the one thing that I was not a fan of, if you are a fountain pen user, your fountain pen ink will ghost big time, and some of them will even bleed through. And so let me see if I can find a page here. I should have marked it. Let me see. Okay, so for instance, this gorgeous color is, oh my gosh, what is the name of it? It's a Noodler's ink. I cannot remember the name of it right now. It's like an orangey color, okay? On the other side, which you'll see, you can't, I don't know if it'll pick up on camera, but it's kind of difficult to read my writing because of the bleed through. So what I ended up doing is to help this. So this is a little tip if you do want a decomposition notebook and you still want to use your fountain pens. I can see the ghosting even on this. I can see the words kind of come through. The camera's not going to pick it up that great. But what I ended up having to do or figuring out is if I do, yeah, here's a good example. So this page is fountain pen ink. This page, I mean, you can kind of see the words through the back. This page was a Pentel Energel. And then I continued with the Energel, and then I would switch, well, this one I didn't. I was having to switch back and forth. So this is a, once again, so this is a Pentel Energel Brown. And then on the back here, this is the Australian Rose, which is a beautiful Noodler's ink. And I just kind of continued doing that because if I wrote with the fountain pen on both sides, you couldn't read it. It would be very difficult to read. So that is one of the big downsides to decomposition notebooks. I will say that these other composition notebooks did not have that same problem. I would occasionally have some bleed through, or not bleed through, some ghosting, but let me find one that I wrote on both sides. Like this is fountain pen ink. And you can see, like, there's a little bit of ghosting, but not at all like the decomposition notebooks. There are some inks that still I couldn't really use. And it could be because I was using a bolder nib in my fountain pens. But just so you know, it's not, it depends on what you like. If you hate ghosting, neither of these will be for you if you're a fountain pen user. If you are okay with some ghosting and you're okay switching between pens, you might want to give the decomposition notebook a try. But my preference with fountain pens would definitely be one of the composition notebooks from Vietnam or a UB. I just want to look through the UB and see. Yeah, so this is, I mean, you can see a little bit of ghosting, but not nearly as bad as the decomposition. Let's see if I can find a page that shows you a blank. Most of these I filled like every page up. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to. Well, here's an example. It's really hard to read what's going on that page because I use fountain pens on both sides. So this is my spring spirit / soul style and summer notes that I took. And on the back, I had another list going on with fountain pens. And you can't, I mean, it's really difficult to read when you've got fountain pen ink on both sides. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and this is true of potentially any journal that you're gonna use. If you tear pages out, your composition notebook will fall apart. Now, I'm not talking like you just gonna tear one page. I'm saying if you end up tearing, I mean, I don't know what the exact count is, but I don't know if I brought down one that actually had it happen, but it will I would say 3 to 5 even. If you tear pages out, your binding will start to loosen up and it will fall apart. And that is very sad when you're filling up a journal to have your journal fall apart. For me, it is a very sad thing. What else can I tell you? I love painting them. They are great to paint. This one I did not paint. This one is a Cynthia art piece, but I do have another one here. Let me grab it. This one was fun to paint. This one actually was a decomposition notebook. And so I just did a little painting and used some duct tape. That is another thing with I feel like it's more the decomposition notebooks. The decomposition notebooks, the little black strip started to come apart. So I ended up having to use duct tape or glue. Like some of these are actually glued in. Yeah, or I actually took Mod Podge because I can see it on the ends. I messily did Mod Podge. Okay, another thing that I do want to share with you is the decomposition notebooks expand. And I don't feel like the regular ones do as much. Okay, so you can look, I mean, they expand like a normal journal would, but then, and these have more pages. Let's see, how many pages? These have 100 sheets. The decomposition notebooks only have 80 sheets. All right, so there's the regular, and then let me just grab 2. Look how thick, look how much it expands. These are heavy, and I love a heavy journal. I love that it feels chunky in my hands. This one did too. Let's see, let me just put all my, this one didn't as much, but I also didn't have as much stuff in it. But these expand and get heavy. And personally, I'm someone who loves that. So those are just a few things before you decide to use a decomposition notebook or a composition notebook that you should know. I do love watercolor in both of them. Let's see if I can show you some watercolored pages because I love splatters. So, and it held great, it held the watercolor great. And I did it on practically every page. There's a little yellow, you can't see it, but like, and it didn't bleed through at all. Decomposition notebooks, you can kind of, with the decomposition notebooks, I will say, so there's a watercolor droplet. You can kind of see a little ghosting on there. So just keep that in mind when you're picking it out, that there is a difference. If you want to use recycled paper, it doesn't tend to hold up as well as the other. But like I said, I'm kind of obsessed with both of them, really. And for me, it didn't stop me from using the decomposition notebooks. My friend Christine, who we meet up for our lockdown, she actually writes with a fountain pen, and she'll do collage on the other side because of the ghosting and bleed through. And so sometimes you just leap because you want to use a certain journal or a certain pen, and you find ways around the things that bother you. So I hope that you found this helpful, inspiring. Let me know what journals you're going to be using in 2021. I have already started my, as you saw my little setup. My Stology is still going strong. I have put her in my leather folio from Galen Leather. Love this thing. And next week, I'll just do like a little, it's very different. It's not your normal, it's not a bullet journal, because I've had a couple people that are like, are you bullet journaling? It's not a bullet journal. It's basically, like if I had to name it something, because there's not a whole lot of writing that I'm doing in my I mean, I am. There is a lot of writing, as you can see, but it's not like journaling. And this is my Create December page. I'm going to do a whole video about Create December, probably in a couple days. But it's really my study book, I guess you could say, where I'm taking notes on videos that I see. I'm journaling regarding just thoughts that came into my mind. Like with the Create December, I talked about how I'm obsessed with everything peppermint. It's kind of an art journal. Basically, it's my brain. The stuff that I couldn't or didn't have room for or didn't think about in the morning when I did my morning journaling, which has currently, and this could totally change, I have been doing that in the Hobonichi. I'll do a whole video on that. I have that here. Oh, here's my used Hobonichi, and I am doing just, you know, lettering and morning mindset work. So I really rabbit trailed. Anyhow, back to composition notebooks. I will do videos on all of those other things soon. Until then, let me know your thoughts on you playing in a comp book. What are your favorite things about composition notebooks? What things do you not like about composition notebooks? Have you ever journaled in a composition notebook? I'm probably gonna be talking about them a lot because I have a feeling I'm gonna miss them in 2021. But you can't have too many journals, right? So I can always start an art journal in a notebook, in a comp book. Okay, I'm gonna go now before I go off rabbit trailing again. And so, until next time, enjoy your wild, sexy lives.